Krasnoarmysk, known in Ukraine as Pokrovsk, was once a quiet industrial hub in the Donetsk region, its factories and railways humming with the steady rhythm of daily life. For decades, the city's identity was shaped by coal mines, steelworks, and the families who called its neighborhoods home. Life here moved at its own pace, far from the world's headlines. But by late 2025, everything changed. Krasnoarmysk had become the epicenter of fierce fighting, its streets echoing with the sounds of artillery and the chaos of war. The city's familiar skyline was now scarred by destruction, and its people faced daily uncertainty. Its strategic location transformed it from a center of commerce into a fortress city, now critical for both Ukrainian logistics and Russian ambitions. The city's railways and highways became lifelines, making it a key prize for whoever could hold it. For Ukraine, Krasnoarmysk was a vital command and supply center. Losing it would disrupt their entire eastern defense. Ukrainian forces worked tirelessly to reinforce positions, move supplies, and protect the city's remaining residents. For Russia, capturing the city meant opening the gateway to deeper advances in the Donbass, threatening other strongholds like Kramatorsk and Sloviansk. The stakes could not have been higher, as both sides understood the consequences of victory or defeat here. The battle for Krasnoarmysk became a fight for control over the future of the Eastern Front. Every block, every intersection became a contested ground, with soldiers and civilians alike caught in the crossfire. The city's dual names, Krasnoarmysk and Pokrovsk, reflect the deeper struggle over the region's identity. This was not just a battle for territory, but for the soul and history of the Donetsk region itself. As winter approached, the world's attention zeroed in on this city, its fate poised to influence the war's direction. International journalists braved the front lines, reporting on the human stories behind the headlines. The coming months would test both armies' resolve and leave the world questioning what would come next. Soldiers endured sleepless nights in trenches, while civilians clung to hope, watching the news for any sign of change. Krasnoarmysk's story is now inseparable from the story of the war itself. A symbol of resilience, sacrifice, and the uncertain future that hangs over the entire region. The final months of 2025 saw Russia launch a major offensive, with Krasnoarmysk at its center. Russian forces shifted tactics, using a pincer movement to encircle Ukrainian troops and cut supply lines. By late October, Russian reports claimed thousands of Ukrainian soldiers were trapped near Krasnoarmysk and Mirnohrad. The capture of a key river crossing further isolated Ukrainian defenders. As November wore on, Russian troops tightened their grip, and by November 28, President Putin announced that 70% of the city was under Russian control. The battle turned into brutal urban warfare, culminating in early December with Russia declaring full control over Krasnoarmysk. The offensive was relentless, aiming to break a key pillar of Ukraine's eastern defense. This campaign would become one of the most consequential of the year. Moscow's narrative of victory was carefully constructed throughout the autumn. Russian commanders reported to Putin that over 10,000 Ukrainian soldiers were encircled, with 5,500 trapped near Krasnoarmysk and Mirnohrad. Putin publicly ordered his commanders to offer surrender terms and ensure civilian safety, framing the operation as both decisive and humane. On November 28, Putin declared the encirclement complete and claimed Russian forces controlled most of the city. Days later, the Russian Ministry of Defense announced full control over Krasnoarmysk, with remaining resistance being cleared. For Moscow, the city's fall was a flawless military success, breaking Ukrainian defenses in Donetsk. The official account was one of overwhelming strength and strategic brilliance. The message the battle was over and Russia had won, but the reality on the ground was far more complex. Russian soldiers and commanders projected unwavering confidence, declaring that the enemy had no chance and was completely trapped. Their morale was high, and their statements were echoed across military briefings and state media, painting a picture of inevitable victory. The atmosphere among the troops was one of certainty, as if the outcome had already been decided. Reports highlighted Russian tactical superiority, using classic pincer movements to encircle Ukrainian forces, unleashing heavy artillery barrages, and calling in air support to avoid costly frontal assaults. These maneuvers were showcased as examples of Russian military prowess, with commanders emphasizing their ability to outmaneuver and outgun the opposition at every turn. Commanders boasted of saving their own troops while systematically destroying Ukrainian resistance. They claimed their strategies minimized Russian casualties and maximized pressure on the defenders. presenting themselves as both skilled tacticians and responsible leaders. The narrative was not just about military victory, but about justification. Russia claimed to be liberating the Donbass and protecting its people from what it called oppression. The message was repeated in speeches, interviews, and propaganda, aiming to legitimize the invasion in the eyes of both Russians and the world. Putin's orders to treat surrendering soldiers humanely were broadcast as proof of a disciplined, moral army. Russian media highlighted these moments, showing soldiers offering water and medical aid to prisoners, reinforcing the image of a force guided by strict codes of conduct. As Russian units began mopping up operations, the tone shifted to one of finality. The city was now firmly under Russian control, and the Ukrainian flag would not fly again. The message was clear. Resistance had been crushed, and a new order was being established. State media amplified these voices, presenting a unified, triumphant image to the world. News anchors spoke of heroism and victory, while frontline interviews reinforced the sense of a historic achievement. And thus, the message was clear. Russia had achieved a decisive victory, and the world was meant to see it as a turning point in the conflict. Yet beneath the surface, the battle's true outcome remained contested. Destruction and chaos lingered, and the fate of the city's residents was far from certain. The war for Krasnoarmysk was as much about information as it was about territory. Competing narratives flooded the airwaves and social media, each side claiming victory and legitimacy. The world watched, uncertain of what to believe, as the fog of war obscured the reality on the ground and left the true story of Krasnoarmysk hanging in the balance. Ukrainian officials fiercely disputed Moscow's claims of victory. General Syrsky insisted Ukrainian troops were still blocking Russian assaults in Pokrovsk and Myrnorod, and that defensive lines were holding. He argued Russia's need to commit reserves showed the strength of Ukrainian resistance. Reports from the front described ongoing, intense fighting within the city center. Ukrainian spokespeople accused Russia of waging an information war, using premature declarations to demoralize defenders and sway global opinion. "Our soldiers are still fighting, that is the only reality that matters," a defense ministry spokesperson said. This counter-narrative aimed to maintain morale and international support. The fog of war made it impossible to know the full truth. For Ukraine, Pokrovsk had not fallen. The battle raged on, and the defenders refused to yield. The city's fate remained uncertain, its streets a symbol of resistance. The fight for Krasnoarmysk was part of a broader Russian offensive that swept across both eastern and northern Ukraine, marking a significant escalation in the conflict. Russian forces launched coordinated attacks on multiple towns, aiming to break through Ukrainian lines and seize key strategic positions. Myrnorod, just east of the city, faced a similar fate as it came under heavy fire and was gradually encircled by advancing Russian troops. This maneuver threatened to further isolate Ukrainian defenders, cutting them off from vital reinforcements and supplies, and putting immense pressure on their ability to hold the line. In the north, Russian advances near Kupiansk and the capture of Volchansk put additional pressure on Ukrainian supply lines. The loss of these towns not only disrupted logistics but also forced Ukrainian units to reposition, stretching their already limited resources even thinner. Ukraine was forced to divert resources and manpower to multiple fronts, weakening its ability to reinforce Krasnoarmysk and respond effectively to the rapidly changing situation on the ground. To the southeast, Russian troops pushed toward Konstantinovka, capturing nearby villages and stretching Ukrainian defenses thin. The relentless advance left little time for Ukrainian forces to regroup or establish new defensive lines. The Donetsk front was in constant motion, with Russian forces advancing on multiple axes. Fierce fighting erupted in towns and villages, as both sides struggled for control of critical territory. The offensive extended beyond Donbass, with renewed Russian activity in the Sumy and Zaporozhye regions. These fresh assaults opened up new fronts, forcing Ukraine to defend a vast and shifting battlefield. This multi-front assault aimed to overwhelm Ukraine, fix its units in place, and prevent an effective response to the main attack. The sheer scale of the offensive left Ukrainian commanders scrambling to adapt as the situation grew more dire by the hour. The fate of Krasnoarmysk was tied to battles raging across the region. As fighting intensified, civilians fled in growing numbers, and the humanitarian crisis deepened. The war's scale and complexity grew with every passing day, engulfing more towns and cities, and leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. Krasnoarmysk is more than just another city. It's the logistical heart of Ukraine's eastern defense. Its railways and highways have kept the Donbass supplied. Losing it would cripple Ukraine's ability to fight in the region. For Russia, capturing Krasnoarmysk is a strategic breakthrough, severing Ukraine's main supply artery and opening the way to Kramatorsk and Sloviansk. The city's fall would give Russia control over nearly all of Donetsk Oblast, a long-standing war aim. Russian tactics, using encirclement rather than frontal assault, signal a shift to more methodical, patient operations. This approach could become a blueprint for future battles, posing new challenges for Ukraine. The battle for Krasnoarmysk is a battle for momentum and morale. Its outcome could dictate the tempo of the war as 2026 approaches. The city's fate may well decide the next phase of the conflict. Even as fighting raged, diplomatic channels remained open. In late November, President Putin revealed that the US and Ukraine had discussed a draft peace proposal, which Moscow was reviewing. Putin's response was cautious. If the terms weren't acceptable, Russia would continue its offensive. The timing was no accident. Russia's battlefield gains were meant to strengthen its hand in negotiations. For Ukraine and its allies, military setbacks complicated the prospect of peace, raising tough questions about possible concessions. The international community faced a dilemma: how to pursue peace without rewarding aggression. The outcome of the battle for Krasnoarmysk would shape any future deal. A Russian victory could force a settlement on Moscow's terms. A Ukrainian defense might lead to a stalemate and more balanced talks. The war's next chapter would be written both on the battlefield and at the negotiating table. As of December 17, 2025, the fate of Krasnoarmysk remains uncertain. Russia claims full control, declaring a strategic triumph and the collapse of Ukrainian defenses. Ukrainian commanders insist the fight continues, with fierce combat still raging in the city. Competing narratives make it nearly impossible to know the full truth. If Russia's claims hold, they gain a critical launchpad for further advances in the Donbass. If Ukraine holds on, it's a monumental defensive victory, blunting Russia's offensive. The outcome could shape the war's future. What's certain is the devastation suffered by the city and its people. Krasnoarmysk, Pokrovsk, stands as a symbol of the war's relentless destruction. Whether it becomes a symbol of conquest or resilience will be decided in the cold days ahead.